Hello everyone, this is Ammo Sorter 06, or my real name, Jacob Newman. Today we are doing sort of like a breakdown of the M4 carbine. We'll be We'll be comparing it against the M16 and the M1 carbine / the M2. So, first of all, with the M1 carbine, a little bit of a summary of it is it's mainly used by the United States military, and it's a air-cooled, gas-operated, direct impingement, magazine-fed carbine, or carbine, I don't care what you use. Pretty much it's just a smaller version of the M16. And what the M16 is, it's pretty much, so many people know it as its main use in Vietnam. Well, when people realized, hey, we're doing more close combat, or we don't really need to shoot 500 yards because we can't shoot 500 yards. They're like, hey, we need something, we love this platform, we love the round, everything like that, but we need something smaller, maybe a little bit lighter, maybe a little bit easier to use, something like that. That's where the M4 carbine came in. Now, even though the M1 carbine's here, there is no relation from the M4 carbine to the M1 carbine, just the name. That's it. The M1 carbine is not made by Colt, or originally made by Colt. I don't know if it's a true story, but I believe it might not be. But the M1 carbine was originally designed in prison, and the guy in prison, once he got out, excuse me, once he got out, or he sent a letter when he was in to when he got out, was he sent a letter to Winchester, hey, I heard the United States military needs maybe a smaller weapon for maybe the driver, or a tank gunner, or maybe, excuse me, or maybe like, let's say, like a major, someone that's never really going to shoot, or theoretically shouldn't shoot this, but let's say the tank breaks down, and let's say you're in Europe, and you jump out, and there's a bunch of Germans around you. Well, your 1911, your revolver, your 1903 pocket hammerless is not going to do the job. So that's what this was for. It's a carbine, so it's smaller than the Grand. It's about half the weight, and it's pretty easy to just stick in a corner. We'll get into the length of everything, the barrel lengths, the calibers. Let's see here, I got some notes. The mass, which is decently important for these. The rate of fire, effective firing range, and the standard sort of like, you can see all of these use box magazines, the standard amount that would be in those box magazines. Sadly, I couldn't find a really good photo, so I believe that is an airsoft one. I also want to scoop you over so you can see everything. Oops, I guess just have to be like that. You have to trust me on this one that these actually have barrel tips. Anyways, if you can sort of tell, we're moving on from the M1 carbine, which is sort of like, that's the first U.S. military adopted carbine that was like semi-auto. We had like the trapdoor carbine, I believe, some other stuff like that back in the day. Even like lever actions had more carbine versions. But this is like the modern day carbine. The first one, which would be this one, the M1 carbine. Now, we'll also be talking about the M2 carbine, which sadly I could not get a photo of, but pretty much this is the right side of the gun. You can tell because, well, you can't tell because it's not in color, but the mag release would be right there. On the other side, instead of just this piece of wood here, there would be a notch right above the mag release where it would be. And it's going to be a selector switch. It would be semi-automatic or fully automatic. I'm going to use semi-auto, full auto. It's just easier for me to use, and that's what I use on a normal basis. Also, sorry if I'm stumbling, stuff like that. A little nervous if I get stuff wrong, because first video I've done in years. So, let's get into what everyone's here for, which is the M4 carbine. As you can see, even with airsoft, no matter what, well, not no matter what, but typically, unless you make your own, stuff like that, it's going to have a collapsed stock. So, this right here, whoops, sorry about that. This right here is sort of like a trigger. You're going to pull that and it can go out. We're going to base it, the length of the M4 carbine, off of when it's fully extended. The stock is fully extended. Because there's an M1A1 for the M1 carbine down here, which is a folding stock. The M16 doesn't have anything like that, so it's not fair to compare it like that, in my opinion. And even the M1A1 carbine down here, which is a metal folding stock, the picture is an M1 carbine. Most of them were just regular M1 carbines. The M1A1 was for paratroopers, and the military really does not use paratroopers much. So, we'll be comparing the stocks with the extended version. Also, some things I want to touch up on. I will be making, where I might make videos on what an what air-cooled is, what gas-operated is, what direct impingement is, and magazine-fed is pretty easy. You see the magazine, and it chambers rounds from the magazine into the receiver, into the bolt. I'll also be getting into how a gun actually works. That's how, and also what is the gun actually? It's the receiver. Anyways, that's for a separate video, if I ever get around to making it. Also, so let's see here. Like I said, M4 carbine mainly used by the United States military. Now, you might be thinking, hey, we've said the M1 carbine, the M2 carbine, and the M4 carbine. Where's the M5? Well, that hasn't come out yet. So far, the M4 carbine is what the military is using. So, the United States military, in case you're from different countries, stuff like that. Sadly, well, not sadly for me, but if you live in a different country than the United States, unless you're an island like Fiji, Puerto Rico, I don't know really anything else, sadly. I don't mean to offend anyone, but I'll be basing my stuff off of the United States. So, let's say you're watching this and you're from Germany, or in Germany. You'll probably be using the G36. I can cover that in a later video, but right now, sadly, that just won't be happening. Anyways, back to the M3 carbine. That is based off the M1 carbine again. What it was is in Korea, the Korean War, which was, I believe, 49 to maybe like 52. I'm not very good with the Korean War. But it pretty much was, hey, we have a thermal scope, which was very, very, like, really big innovation, which they're like, hey, we know that the M16 is coming out. So we don't want to test it on the Garand because we know the M16 will be replacing the Garand and the Carbine. But the Carbine will be what the M16 is replacing second. The first thing that the M16 is replacing is the M1 Garand, which I'll probably do another video as well. So they're like, hey, we'll put a thermal scope or a thermal sight on the M1 Carbine. And they had to shift it around because this ejects upwards. You can see the bolt right there. And sort of some metal pieces. I'll go through that separate video, like I said. But it ejects through the top. Maybe a little sideways because it pushes it to the side. But, oops. But, sorry about that. Just my finger. Like I said, that's the M3 Carbine. Just a thermal scope on the M1 Carbine. Which is that one, just in case. Anyways, let's go to some more statistics and stuff like that about the M4 Carbine. So the M4, the basic M4 Carbine, which would not be this one, has semi-automatic and a 3-round burst, which means when you pull the trigger, so semi-auto or semi-automatic, is you pull the trigger once, you can even hold it down, 1 bullet will fly out the barrel. With 3-round burst, you pull or hold the trigger once, 3 bullets go out the barrel. And also, civilians can't even have the M4. They have AR-15, which you've probably heard of. Big discussion. It's pretty political, so I won't get into that. I might, again, in a later video, but not right now, and not planned. So, the M4A1, which is what the military typically uses, is semi-auto and full auto. So, we already said semi-auto. Full auto is, you can press the trigger once and only 1 bullet will fly out. Maybe 2 if you don't release it quick enough. But if you hold the trigger down, bullets will keep flying out until you run out of bullets. And then, you can hold the trigger down all you want. It's just, even the action won't work. Bullets just won't fly out because you don't have any left. So like if you, let's say I have 3 hot dogs. I eat all 3 hot dogs. I can keep trying to eat the hot dogs all I want, but they're gone. So, if that's a good analogy, be having hot dogs today, so that's the reason. The M4 Carbine, which is this one up here, was first adopted into the United States military in 1994. When this video comes out, 2020, pretty bad year, but we'll move on from that. That would be, let's see here, math, 26 years ago. That's a decent while. But it's still our sort of like, there's been a lot of things that have tried to replace it, but we don't think it's worth it. So we're sticking with the M4A1, sorry. So some specs. The mass of the M4 is 6.63 pounds, and that's when there's no magazine here. Or bullets. And for other measurements, that's 3.01 kilograms. And when the magazine is in here, it's 7.75 pounds, which is about a pound heavier, with this 30-round mag, or 30 rounds in this magazine. Now, it's not a clip. I'll get into that in a separate video, and I do have that planned, because it's a very controversial topic. So, also, it's 3.5